Welcome to the Sip and Scale podcast, where we talk about everything business, entrepreneurship, and startups. My name is Blendi Muriqi. I'm the CEO and founder of Delegate.co. Each week, you'll join us as we talk with industry experts and business owners, sharing actionable insights to drive your business forward. So grab your favorite beverage and let's sip our way to success. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sip and Scale podcast. Joining us today is Reed Hansen. He's the owner and chief growth officer at MarketSurge and a real seasoned digital marketing leader. He's helped everyone from startups to Fortune 500 companies scale through a powerful mix of data-driven strategy and creative marketing. He knows exactly what it takes to win in competitive markets, and today he's here to share some of his insights with us. Welcome to the podcast, Reed.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So let's start with just your background, how you got into marketing, what you've done over the years, and then we'll go into what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started my career in sales roles and first worked for a startup near my university in Utah. And we were developing websites for tech conferences, essentially. And surprisingly, in '06, that was fairly revolutionary for the industry. And we were growing really fast. And it was just fun to be part of something really growing at that rate and seeing how technology could really change an industry. And we were replacing paper-based mail-in registrations for these conferences and paper processes on site when they were getting their name badges. And if you can remember decades back, hotels used to have a register and that's how they would do the conferences. But to make that leap forward was really cool. And then I had another stop at a large company, again in sales. And that was a great experience because I got to really learn the very meticulous nuts and bolts of a sales process. And in that role, like every word we said, every objection was carefully orchestrated in our response. And I was just thinking at that time, I was like, I enjoy a lot of this, but I would like to do more. And maybe getting an MBA would help be a stepping stone to either something more marketing related or something just a little bit different, because I was satisfied with my sales education at that point, but completed my MBA at the University of Michigan. And sure enough, I ended up right back at Oracle, and very similar role, and was selling a different product this time and in Chicago. And I learned it was an acquisition. So long story, but it was part of an acquisition, and they had acquired something that would compete with something their big rival SAP had. But they bought the wrong company, that it was not as good of technology. And so I was like a little frustrated with that and thought, let me try my hand in the agency space, and worked in the digital agency space as a development executive, both project managing custom app development projects and recruiting new clients. And so it was more in the marketing role. I understood how technology products were created and all of the modern techniques for doing that. Spent a few years at Northwestern University here in Evanston, Illinois, where I live, selling executive education. And you know, it's funny, it's brought me here. So for the last 2 years, I've purchased a marketing agency and I've been running it. But I feel like I've taken a little piece from each role in my past, and it is combined together to make what is now my dream job. I love leading a team where we tackle marketing challenges, where we evaluate new products and find new venues for growth. And it has just been so much fun. And that's what's brought me here today, and just looking forward to the future.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine in your current position, you come across different types of companies at different stages in their growth. What are the types of companies that you love working with the most
Yeah.
and the most like high impact? Because startups to large 1,000-person companies, they have different obstacles they have to face. What is your ICP, your ideal customer profile? Not from like a revenue standpoint, but
Mm-hmm.
just people that you really, companies you like working with.
Yeah. So I'd say, just making a general statement, I like working with businesses that have a high amount of sales activity. So that's whether it's like a very high touch sales process, or they work with a lot of different leads or do a lot of transactions. I like that because I can get a lot of data to synthesize and help them optimize a process. Like we can uh, help them craft a workflow that will affect a lot of people and could have a quick impact. I do work with other companies as well that don't do fewer, maybe larger transactions. And I enjoy working with them as well, but it's not so as much the data process because each project is so custom. And so it's a little bit more on about gut feeling, I'd say
Yeah.
in those situations. And then maybe just to be put a finer point on it, I have worked with a lot of photography studios, and as I work with home services businesses that have large call centers like pest control or solar or window cleaning, things like that. But yeah, those are the main two groups that we work with at our agency.
Interesting. Did
Yeah.
you just naturally dive into those niches, or was it accidental where you had one client in a specific niche and then you said, wow, I can make a big impact in this niche. Let me double
Yeah.
down on it.
We've been very opportunistic about it. So I didn't want to, I guess, talk for a full hour about my background, but so MarketSurge is my agency, and I was working with my wife's photography studio at the time. So there's one clue there. And when we were looking at tools to automate processes, a friend of ours, we had discussed this with him, and he suggested this technology, and we were client number one. We worked together on the CRM platform. We used some white label tools to put this together and built some processes that we thought could be replicated across many photography studios. And so, like you said, we had some expertise in that field and started spreading the word and added more clients in that field. The pest control was similar. We worked with one pest control company that was in startup mode and grew with them and learned a lot, and have added others on those learnings. And
Yeah.
it really does help scale when you get in deep in one niche and then uh, share those success stories, and that becomes helpful, and you can duplicate the success in other companies.
Yeah. I'm sure there's also a learning curve there where,
Yeah.
it takes a couple of months for you to actually learn the the inner dynamics of a certain niche because they're not
Yeah.
all made equal. I mean, I could say on our end, so when we do virtual assistant placement with various types of companies, it's a lot easier to work with the main customer base, which we have, which is in the real estate space. But every once in a while, we have clients that come in that are lawyers or
Yeah.
they're service-based companies, HVAC, plumbing. And
Mhm.
so, in order to recruit the best talent for those types of companies, you have to understand what the challenges are that those
Absolutely.
people face on a daily basis. But then, once you understand those challenges from a sales perspective, it becomes so much easier to sell because you know their pain points in and out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one process I've observed that I think can be repeatable, if in your audience you're looking for people that want to get started in a niche, is work with like somebody that's a hardworking entrepreneur in the space, maybe not big yet, but has good work ethic and an entrepreneurial experimental mindset, and work with them. Maybe price your services to appropriately. You can grow together, develop those success stories, and you learn that industry while they're putting their marketing and other processes together. And you'll have both the learnings, great testimonial, and potentially word of mouth referral that can help you build out the niche. And I found like learning vocabulary tends to be really important, using the words they use, and
Yeah,
making a list, memorizing it, and that those, and like you said, understanding the pain points. But sometimes you have to live it with an early client to fully grasp it. How long does this problem take to solve, and how frequently does this happen? How much does it cost to solve these kinds of problems? Think
yeah.
little details like that.
In terms of you're saying when you go in and help these clients,
Mhm.
how has AI changed your prescriptions to their company problems in the last few years? And what changes have you made to your company to adapt to the changing climate?
Yeah, and it's an ongoing process. As we know, AI changes daily, and there's a new release on one of the big LLM platforms quite frequently. And it used to be like AI is bad at writing blog content, and it was so easy to tell what it when it's written by AI. I'd say that's less and less the case as time goes by. And then same with the video, it's getting better. The research it does, it's very surface level. I think it can actually get pretty deep and it can pull in great citations. And
Yeah.
so like all these things are such in flux. For the one, I try every task I do, I try to do it using AI. And I will, since most of these are subscription SaaS tools, I'll sign up for a lot of things and keep what works and discard what doesn't. And I've even gotten into creating apps using Cursor. And I know a lot of people have maybe experimented with that, but there's some great opportunities to build your own apps. Just think of
Yeah.
a problem that needs to be solved. And for basic apps or version one, it's totally doable on these platforms and it's going to get better. So, the way I help my clients is I do create content as I experiment with these tools, and I share with my clients in a newsletter or on my YouTube channel about my findings. And I recommend the tools I like. In some cases, I can help configure them appropriately for their environment. We'll either put up something lightweight using make.com that brings in some intelligence into a process that was usually required like a human to intervene. In some cases, we implemented chat bots for text conversations. Voice AI, I'm a little less keen on. I just haven't seen great results with it, but I know some have. Uh, but these are things
Depends
that,
on the inputs that you have a lot of times on the
that's true.
AI. If you have limited data to work off of, then your responses are going to be low quality.
Yeah, agreed. And I think your audience too might, a lot of it depends on like their tolerance or familiarity with this, and if they're like willing to interact. Sometimes they'll just be like, operator, just give me to a human, and really struggle with it. But um, obviously I think that's where we're trending to, is that we'll see a lot more of these agents. And so I feel like I shepherd, or I'm like a Sherpa to help these companies get more and more AI conscious and AI using it. But it is a process. It's not one
It's
day
an
you just,
evolution.
yeah, exactly. Like one day all of a sudden you're great at prompting and you've turned all your processes over to OpenAI. It's a journey, definitely.
How do you think, I always ask this question.
Yeah.
Last year I was at an AI conference and we had a panel discussion. I was there speaking on behalf of human capital because I'm in the human capital space.
Hmm.
And the other panelists were speaking the tech side. And the debate was on the impact it'll have on companies and employment
Yeah.
of actual human beings. Where do you see that, like either friction or unity coming into play within the next few years? And what are you seeing right now? Are people looking, the companies you work with, are they looking at this as, hey, how can we remove overhead? Or are they saying, hey, how can we just make our people more efficient and output 3x, 5x what it is right now?
Yeah. I think like from a philosophical standpoint, I am very pro AI, and I think it does open up a lot of opportunities. I think it helps more people to be entrepreneurs and be successful and scale up, so to speak. No pun intended, considering the podcast name, but it helps them do more faster. And I think in some cases it's generating higher quality output than they're able to do individually. You've got to wear a lot of hats as an entrepreneur. Um, and you just can't be an expert in everything. And you also can't afford to hire out an expert for everything. And so the AI can bridge that gap, and it's getting better and better. But by the numbers, as we know, there have been some layoffs at some large companies that have replaced a lot of entry level work. And of course, they're looking to optimize and looking to grow. My hope is that people that may suffer job loss might find their services still valuable or find niches that can be supported and enabled in an entrepreneurial capacity. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but and I'm sure there's going to be more discoveries, more industries that open up, more. And I do think, like with every technology innovation, it opens up a lot of societal wealth. And we generally see an improvement in our standard of living. I'm not a protectionist per se, like where, so forgive me if I'm offending anybody, but I would lean towards it being a good thing, though there will probably be a period of friction where certain job roles and they're going to be either less valuable or somewhat less necessary with more powerful tools.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, long answer, but I'm overall optimistic. I think we might have a few years of friction, but I think there will be more opportunities opened up.
Yeah, definitely. I also, to give the example of Uber or Seamless, Grubhub, these were platforms that in the beginning there was a lot of friction because people said that taxi drivers would be out of business, and that friction did lead to some job displacement. But
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the overarching benefit as it has had to people taking their livelihood in their own hands, it's empowered people to create jobs for themselves they otherwise wouldn't have. So I think in that same manner, to your point about making people more entrepreneurial, with that some job displacement, there comes that push of people to become entrepreneurs for themselves. I also think that with AI, there's a lot more access to information easier than ever. If you want to start a business tomorrow, there is a MBA right there on your fingertips that can show you from step A to Z how it's done. And that we've never seen that before.
Yeah.
So like the barrier of entry is zero. It's
Yeah.
free. It's just a matter of who's going to utilize it. And even today, I see it with myself. Like I have to push myself to utilize these tools more and more because I know I'm not being as efficient as I could be. And as an entrepreneur, it's like you need to be on the cutting edge and you need to be as efficient as possible in order to keep your business thriving.
And to your point, when we've had technology advances in the past, it's been quite expensive to participate. With the internet, um, it required like very advanced skills to build web pages or any sort of platform at that point. And the telephone, it needed to be wired up to your home. But like the infrastructure is already here. The tools are in many cases free, and it's just a great. I think it's different than some of the other big technology leaps forward we've had in the past, and that it's just so accessible, such a low barrier to entry.
Definitely. What do you think about shifting gears to the marketing space?
Yeah.
What do you think about today's AI generated content and its ability to compete with human creativity? We're both on LinkedIn, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We know when there's an AI post and then there's something that's human made and it has substance to it, and you can pinpoint which one is which. From like a strategy standpoint, when you're speaking to these companies, how do you advise them on when to push the gas on using AI versus leveling up on their content through a human content writer?
Yeah, I think the best strategy is a hybrid approach. You do need to post frequently, and I think that's a rule. And the algorithm's going to favor you if you post frequently. But algorithms tend to favor like authenticity and novelty in the content, and it will recognize certain strings and other aspects of AI generated content on most of these platforms and won't promote them as heavily. Now, I think the remedy for that is is to participate in as much content as you can, and exactly like what you and I are doing right now, doing a podcast and having a platform where you can take snippets from this, share thoughts in video form. That's not the way I pause and say, that's not going to be replicated by an AI video creation. Even if it can create an avatar that looks and sounds a lot like me,
Yeah.
it won't be real. And I think this is a great exercise to speak in public, to be recorded, record your thoughts in whatever format you want and whatever platform, but it's doing really right now. And I would encourage people to take advantage of what's actually not that hard to create. It's
Yeah.
a lot of great tools for it.
Why do you think we speak to a lot of startups
Mhm.
and early entrepreneurs on this podcast? What do you think the biggest mistake people make today in creating content? Let's say you're a startup founder or early stage company, and your marketing team says to you, you need to be putting content out there. And it gets little to no engagement.
Mhm.
Many times you feel like you're talking to yourself on camera to no audience. You go to a company that maybe it's a larger company and they're doing the same thing and they have little to no engagement. They're selling some software that just hits a very small niche, although an important niche. How do they get around that?
Yeah, I think it's good to recognize what are vanity metrics and what are the key data pieces that help lead to sales. And you want to make sure that you can work with a platform, whether it's content that's on your website and on a blog or a landing page that you can track, or that it is allowing you to trace click patterns like in an ad or whatnot, to be able to attribute this to sales or appointments booked or prospects. So having good data is really important, and not, I think this is what you're getting at, that don't obsess over subscribers, likes, comments, because if you got one view and it led to one sale, that is a fantastic piece of content. And maybe I'd say too is to, when you're early on in your startup, experiment with different kinds of content. You don't know what might land, and all sorts of very, very popular channels have very unique approaches that they stumbled onto by accident. And
Mhm.
I think it's just, with the startup phase, gives you a lot of opportunity to do something unique, and people love unique. We're just bombarded with so much content, and just lean into unique, and
Mhm.
lean into authentic. And sometimes authentic looks like misspeaking or looking nervous on camera, and that's fine. But sometimes it's like your style of speaking, your speech impediment or unique accent or something like those. Lean into those things for sure.
Double down for authenticity.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
When you're working with a pest control company, for
Yeah.
example, what are some of the biggest like marketing hurdles that they're facing? And are you in your position where you are right now, are you assisting these companies directly with the technology component, or are you heavily involved with just their kind of daily marketing activities? What does your job look like on a daily basis with a pest control company, for example?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Initially in setup, we try to make sure that the call volume is pretty high, inbound and outbound. And we want to make sure that no call is missed, for instance. And so we create processes to make sure that the phone calls are always routed to somebody ready to take the call. And if not, if it's like after hours or in an unusual rush period, that there is potentially an automated response, even a conversational bot that can help carry the baton a little bit. And then over once we're set up, that's just one aspect, but we also manage long-term email drip campaigns to encourage reviews, referrals, and repeat business with people that have already worked with you, and just keep yourself top of mind. And we have separate processes for each. And then we also implement ads and monitor the success of those and keep an eye on why cost per acquisition is creeping up, or I think inevitably they're creeping up because of just working with the Meta platform, for instance. There's
Yeah.
some nuance there, but we are doing our best to keep those costs down and the conversions high and just keep it a solid funnel. And then in some cases, we're building custom landing pages if they want to open a new territory or focus on a certain special. So we're like a multi-tool player that we work on demand, but really we keep an eye on the numbers. And if we identify something that is trending in the wrong direction, we try to pivot to help them keep costs down.
Yeah. I like that the first thing you mentioned was the technology setup on the customer service side, because that touch point is a marketing touch point if you think about it. If they have a good experience there, that becomes an outlet for you to get referrals or to advertise referral programs to people. I know a lot of companies that they've never used SMS notifications, and now it's becoming rather frequent where companies will actually use SMS because there's a the reality is people look at their emails a lot less than they did 10, 15 years ago,
Right.
and their attention spans are a lot shorter. It's definitely interesting to see that evolution. But one thing on the pest control companies I'm curious about,
Yeah.
you mentioned ad spend and CAC going up. In those situations, do you when you see, okay, our ads are becoming much more expensive, yes, it might be because of the Meta platform, or it might just because there's a lot of players in that specific territory. Do you then transition and say, hey, we're going to double down on organic because we need to bring our CAC down? Or do you just say we need to refine these ads to bring in more prospects?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So anytime that cost is creeping up, we try to look at everything we can do. When you talk about the issues with the Meta platform, there's fewer viewers and a little less engagement than there were even just a few years ago. And I think that's a large part of what drives the costs up. And so we try to identify where they're going, like where are their eyes moving. And TikTok ads are an opportunity. That's a growing platform, one of the few growing social media platforms. And so we try to consider the consumer themselves and their perspective. Organic gets harder and harder because of the way Google has devalued it, I would say. They bring in the AI generated responses. So if you were looking for best pest control near me, you might get a block of text before you'd even see the paid
Yeah.
or the map pack. And which is frustrating from an SEO standpoint. And I don't know that anybody's mastered this secret sauce, but when if we've pivoted slightly on this, it's to tailor blog content that either we create or we coach our clients to create with more long tail keywords and more position a blog as an answer to a question, as
Mm.
think of a very detailed question that somebody might ask in your addressable market and write the blogs to that question. And that's I think your best shot of appearing in these AI
Searches.
searches, exactly. Whether it's on ChatGPT or in that block of text that Google's now returning from those searches.
What's your thoughts on Reddit? Because
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what sort of business vertical you're in, but from what I've gathered, these AI, call them search engines now, they're taking from different parts of the internet, and one of them being Reddit, because that's a community where people have discussions. Are you seeing that as a trend, at least in some markets, in some types of businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The trick that I haven't necessarily been able to master is Reddit is notoriously unfriendly to promotion unless you're paying for ads. And so it's really hard to associate like a very helpful comment or post with your brand. You're likely to get kicked out of this niche subreddit that bans promotions.
Hmm.
And so that's a tricky one. I think it's a great place to post and find answers to questions. It's almost like halfway between what a Google search was and fully AI generated response, just the amount of information that's on there. And it also does make me a little uncomfortable with how much ChatGPT relies on Reddit, that knowing the responses, the average responses you'll see on there, and just who's the edge lords that are responding there frequently.
Yeah,
So,
there's plenty of them, that's for sure.
that's right. I think it's a great platform, and I think you should participate, but maybe not be overtly self-promotional.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good way to create community. The trick is, how do you create community and put yourself in a position to be a thought leader there in a specific niche,
Mm-hmm.
and then indirectly use that to promote your business.
Yeah. Maybe one way you could look at it is somewhat of a laboratory to help refine your messaging. And in the sense that I know that Redditors are sometimes a distinct group of people, and
Yeah.
I'm not good or bad. I'm not saying that
Just different.
just different, like very online people, very. And if you put ideas out there that are in line with your brand, don't include your brand name, but put ideas out there as posts or comments, see the reaction you get, the feedback you get, and maybe that's helpful in further refining that idea or strengthening your argument in favor of your service, something like that. And I think that's valuable because you can get feedback very quickly on that platform. And
Yeah.
so something to consider. More information is always a good thing.
I'm sure when you're analyzing a certain client, you're also looking at their demographic is of customers, because there's different people on different platforms. If you're selling consumer goods to people under the age of 18, it's Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a makeup brand, it's Instagram. If you're selling services to the over 55 population, it's most likely Facebook.
Right.
Um, I'm sure, is that a part of your kind of value proposition when you start working with a company? It's, we're going to do the analysis of your market first before we give any sort of prescriptions on where you should be marketing. Because a lot of times people, they just throw up ads, for example, on Instagram, and none of their customers are living on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, no, I absolutely. And a lot of my customers do come with some form of a one pager on their ideal customer.
Hmm.
And that's very helpful for me to synthesize, but I often have feedback and things to add. But we have gone through that exercise with many clients. The same photography studio doing the same services in Florida looks very different than somebody doing it in Los Angeles. They'll have like different customer profiles, even though it's the same kind of photography. And just because of the location and the culture of the locality. And but having that in hand and being able to refer to it and keeping that as this is who we want to work with, that does really help inform the whole process. Does it inform, do our ideal customers want to receive appointment reminders via email, with a call, or with the text? You know, that all of these little intricacies are informed by the platforms that they use, and the way they like to consume information.
Well, in terms of when there's a lot of different marketing agencies out there
Yeah.
and marketers that tout the benefits of using their services. What do you focus most on when you've got a prospect in front of you that you're trying to sell your services on? What is that grand slam offer that you give to them that they may not necessarily find with other companies? Do you rely on reputation? Is it the cross section of you working on traditional marketing techniques, but then tying in AI? What is that value proposition for your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a combination of, we provide it all in a comprehensive service offering. So we can do all things digital that really relate to the internet, your website, your ads, help refine your SEO, and help you with your digital communications to optimize those. And we keep you abreast of the AI trends. We're investigating those ourselves. And I'm on every sales call, and I want to convey that they have access to the whole team, which they do, and that we offer tremendous support. And that's been a real value of ours, that if you're looking for the lowest cost provider, we're pretty reasonable in terms of cost, but that's not what we're trying to be. We're not trying to cut every corner to make this the least expensive offering, and we're not
Mhm.
trying to offer like a Mercedes in every aspect. But what we're trying to do is be accessible, and we can address problems quickly, and we're friendly people that can help stressed entrepreneur work their way through a difficult marketing challenge.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Having worked for Fortune 500 companies,
Yeah.
you learn a thing or two about managing people and delegating.
Mhm.
When you transitioned to being self-employed and having your own business, what are some of the things you brought from the corporate world into running your own business when it came to hiring and retaining talent?
Yeah, that's a great question, because everybody on my team does have to wear multiple hats, and we're all entrepreneurs, and we're like, all of us touch every aspect of the business in some degree. We have our kind of our lanes, but we do have to be prepared to assist in a busy period and that affects one of us. So I do look for players that aren't just married to one job description, particularly people that can learn and do it gracefully, that they can carry the stress. And I make it sound like we have super stressful lives, which I don't think we do. I think we are pretty grounded in reality, and we keep level heads. So I'm looking for people that can learn, people with level heads that are like able to communicate in a customer situation and not fold. There's a couple people that have some deep technical expertise in some of these areas. But for the most part, the kinds of problems we're dealing with, we can almost all do all of the marketing work, whether it's content or web design or web development. And it's because a lot of it's we've learned on the job. And that's just my expectation. And I think that should be, to go back to your career question, is should be everybody's expectation now with AI, is that AI can help us learn, AI can accelerate our learning, and that we just should be confident that things can be learned, skills can be acquired, and we should just keep in that mindset.
Do you think that like the copywriters that you work with are in a way like nervous? Especially, I'd think that if you're an entry level copywriter or you only have a few years on the job, like right now you are panicking. Do you see that sentiment right now, or do you think that people feel actually much more empowered more than ever?
I'd say it's 80-20. I think 80% of the copywriters I have interacted with, or not, it's not black and white, but I'd say as a broad statement, they're 80% positive about future opportunities. That they can, for instance, if they were to use AI, I think skilled copywriter can prompt AI, can refine the responses from AI in a skilled fashion and produce a superior product, and do it quickly. The other 20% are people that are very worried, that they just think that maybe they were so bespoke, or that they were just really in love with the 0 to 100 process, and they really like to own it. And I totally get that. And those opportunities, I think, are going to become fewer and fewer. Even like the AP and CNN are using, they're publishing, selling news content that's AI generated. Uh, it's unfortunate, but I do think that they can include AI in their process and still show their skill can still shine through in what they can either refine or prompt better than the lay person. Yeah.
One thing I really agree with you on is the thought of when you're bringing talent in, them becoming multi-skilled in a way, and I think it applies especially to the marketing space. Any marketer needs to be a salesperson, and any salesperson needs to be a marketer, and that kind of goes to your origin story where you had started in a sales role and then eventually like that transformed also into a marketing role. And I always see like on my end, first a salesperson and the marketing component comes after. So I would say also having the copywriter, for example, that person needs to understand the pain points of a business and be able to sell something to them. They need to be just as much a salesperson on paper as the marketer that is just putting content out there.
Yeah, sales skills turn out to be really valuable in just about every role. Being a persuader, being a listener, and being able to think and talk on your feet just really serve you in any role if you want to be effective. You just have to have that interchange of ideas and be able to. It's not always like win lose. A lot of it is just being able to hear people or reframe things and get things in a situation where you can collaborate.
Last question before we wrap up. I always want to give like practical advice to listeners for business owners, small and large. If you're a business owner right now and you don't have a good grasp of your data, for example, and you very much have an old school, maybe you're a boomer that owns a pest control company, or you're a plumber and your biggest obstacle is just getting in front of eyeballs for the lowest cost. What is one thing that they could do before coming to you to bring your services in to get them set up for success?
I I think I've undergone this transformation in just the past year, and I think I can speak from good experience. Seek out speaking opportunities, and I would include podcast guest appearances in that. Seek out opportunities with your Chamber of Commerce or Rotary Club or small conferences near you. Ask to speak at those, and when you are in front of people or on the spot being interviewed, your marketing message is if it will either make sense or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you'll be forced to pivot and change. So I would say seek those out, do that first. Those are super valuable interactions, and it will really strengthen your brand messaging, and you'll get the kind of feedback that you need to take it the next level.
I 100% agree with that. When I started going to conferences, like this year, probably attended like 10 conferences.
Oh, nice.
And since doing that, and some of them had public speaking positions, I can say that my ability to convey our company's message, it got increasingly better after each conference. So yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. I assumed, I guess, coming into this that selling would be a matter of how many calls I made. This is my old train coming through, but I just think that if you're selling something really valuable or of value that you need to differentiate yourself, you need to be speaking. You need to be getting yourself out there.
Yeah, very true. Reed, I really appreciate you coming on today, talking a little bit about everything, but it was a pleasure having you. Where can people find you online and connect with you if they have further questions or want to learn more about MarketSurge?
Yeah, great question. So my website is marketsurge.io, and my email is easy. It's reed@marketsurge.io. I'm happy to chat with anybody. I love doing the networking thing, and would be happy to connect you or share any knowledge that I have anytime on any marketing topic.
Awesome. Guys, thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Sip and Scale podcast. Thank you. Bye.